If you give a mouse a cookie, they're gonna want a glass of milk. And if you give someone some sugar, they're gonna... What would the food equivalent for sex be in this analogy? Like cake or something? I don't know. It doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is that in romantic relationships, there tends to be this expectation that one thing will always lead to another. You know, that's the point of having bases, right? That you want to get a home run. But you know, like the thing is like, what if you don't want a home run? What if you don't even want to play the game? To many, this is a foreign idea, but that's roughly how asexuals feel. Just varying levels of disinterest in playing the game baseball. And although it started to get better within recent years, asexuality has long been viewed as an abnormality, something that needs fixing. And this is not just, you know, the point of view that you hear from romantic partners, but friends, family, peers, doctors, what have you. You know, there are expectations of what someone is supposed to want when they're in a relationship, and its tendrils are near impossible to escape. Because of this, a lot of asexual people, especially those who aren't aware that they are asexual or that that's even an option, end up feeling alienated and broken and uncomfortable, and they end up trying to bargain with their sexuality to try to make it make sense. I can attest to this being asexual myself. Now, I recently watched the show Flight of the Conchords for the first time, which is a musical show that stars Bret McKenzie and Jermaine Clement, and they play fictionalized versions of themselves who move from New Zealand to America, specifically New York, and we follow them as they try and, spoilers, fail to gain an American audience for their band, Flight of the Conchords. Besides their exploits as a band, the other most consistent element of the show would be Bret and Jermaine's dating lives, and to my surprise, I began to notice something familiar about Bret's experiences. The so-called Boom King himself. There was bargaining, there was alienation, there was discomfort, all surrounding a general disinterest in sex. It was all there. The garlic bread to his asexual was a burrito with some beans and rice. Throughout the show, Bret's behavior surrounding his sexuality and how people treat him because of it aligns with the experiences of someone who is asexual. This, my friends, is the tragedy of the Boom King. In the episode Girlfriends, Bret and Jermaine get girlfriends, Lisa and Felicia respectively. And, you know, Lisa, who's dating Bret, is just being a weirdo creep the entire time, just constantly trying to pressure Bret into sex. You know, he explains multiple times to her and his friends why he doesn't feel ready yet, and, you know, the things that he says align a lot with someone who's trying to make sense of their asexuality within the framework of allosexual relationships. Allosexual meaning someone who does experience sexual attraction. For example, on their second date, Lisa asks him, you know, how long does he wait before he lets a girl come upstairs? And he thinks about this and says 3 years. He also goes to his friend Dave on advice on what to do about the whole Lisa situation, telling him,
No, I just always imagined that when I did finally make the move, it would be more special, you know? It would be flowers, violins, I'll be in a nice suit. Everything would just be perfect.
Looking at him through an asexual lens, this comes off as trying to work around his sexuality to try and calculate a future situation in which he does feel sexual attraction. 3 years, from what I understand, is a long time to wait, and I don't think he's ever even had a relationship that lasted that long before. But, you know, he knows that he's expected to want to have sex eventually, so this is the only way to make the fact that he doesn't make sense, you know? You know, he does feel sexual attraction, it just takes a few years and a couple violins, you know? And what he says to Dave is especially significant because that tells us it's not just about him not liking Lisa, this is his mindset when it comes to all relationships. Another significant moment is when Bret elaborates on his feelings to Lisa in the song A Kiss Is Not a Contract.
I can't go around loving everyone, I just wouldn't get anything done.
While of course a lot of allosexual people feel that they want to find the right person before taking it up to the next level, the way that Bret describes casual sex is very strange. He views it through the lens of like a, why do I keep saying lens? He views it as more of a chore rather than something that someone would look forward to or at the very least find pleasurable. It's just a thing to do among all the other things that he has to get done in a day. It's like someone saying, hey, you want some ice cream? And instead of saying, nah, I'm good, or I don't like that flavor, or something like that, you say, I can't just eat ice cream all the time. I have stuff to do. Like, no one's asking you to eat ice cream every single time it's offered to you. And if you view eating ice cream as such an insurmountable task, then maybe you just don't like ice cream. Now add in what he said about when he'd feel ready, and within the allosexual world, he comes off as overly reluctant. But within the asexual world, the mindset fits right in. It's not as if any of these statements are inherently asexual, but their significance is in how they lay the groundwork for how he doesn't fit the, stereotypical heterosexual man mold. Now, some might point out that Brett actually sings about wanting to sleep with women in several songs, but the thing is, in almost all those cases, sex isn't an actual offer on the table. There's, Ladies of the World, where he and Jermaine sing about how they
just wanna do something special for all the ladies in the world. Is that possible?
Something special meaning make love to them. It's the least they can do. He says,
I have a vision and all I can see is all of you with the all of me in a world of peace and harmony where every lady gets a little piece of bread.
This is quite different and kind of contradictory with what he says in A Kiss Is Not a Contract, but there's actually a major difference between those two instances. Sure, in Ladies of the World, he's saying he wants to get with all these women, but there's no actual women he's gonna have to have actual sex with there, It's all talk, unlike in A Kiss Is Not a Contract, when there is a woman right there trying to have sex with him right then, and he's explaining how he feels to her. Also, later in the episode where he sings Ladies of the World, two girls who were at the event turn out to be interested in them, and despite, Jermaine and Brett both singing about how they want to get with all the ladies of the world no matter who they are, only Jermaine is interested in them. Brett's just kind of weirded out. It's a similar kind of thing with the song Boom, where he sings about wanting to boom, have sex with Coco, who at the time was just a girl he had a crush on at work, but, when he does eventually end up dating her, his attitude in the song If You're Into It, which I'll discuss more in a moment, is significantly less passionate. Unlike those previous examples, though, there are actually instances in which Brett does have or offer sex. This may seem even more contrary to the idea that he's asexual, but on the contrary, asexuality is not inherently incompatible with sex. That is a common misconception. Part of the spectrum of asexuality is whether someone feels sex favorable, sex indifferent, or sex repulsed, which just indicates the level of comfort someone has participating in sex. The one through line connecting them all is that the person feels little to no sexual attraction. In the instances where Brett does tangibly pursue sex, it's not from a place of sexual attraction. And we see this first in the song If You're Into It that he and Jermaine wrote for Brett's girlfriend Coco. Like I mentioned before, prior to dating, we got the song Boom, which was about Brett wanting to boom
like it's never been done
with her. But now that they're actually dating and it's a real possibility, his thoughts on the matter are quite different. The song If You're Into It is all about what Brett is willing to do for Coco, such as hang out, get naked, even let her get naked too, if that's what she's into. And those are the key words, if that's what you're into. The whole song has a very ambivalent attitude. For most allosexual people, sex is an eventual necessity in a relationship. But, he doesn't really mind if she's not into that. It's just not important to him. In fact, it seems that he would prefer that she not get naked. Brett sings the line,
if it's cool with you, I'll let you get naked too.
The usage of the word let implying that this is a compromise on his end. This is on top of the fact that him getting naked and her getting naked are not an inherently packaged deal. He brings these two things up separately, along with any further action taken while naked. The only thing he's offered so far is viewing one another whilst nude. It's honestly quite funny to compare If You're Into It with Boom because of how stark the two songs are. Like I said before, this can be attributed to If You're Into It being grounded in a concrete scenario and Boom being a song of fantasy. But another thing that contributes is the conflation of aesthetic attraction and sexual attraction. Enjoying someone's appearance, aesthetic attraction, is much different than wanting to have sex with them, sexual attraction. It's the late 2000s, and, asexuality is not something on the vast majority of people's radars. The general idea is that everyone feels sexual attraction. So, when he finds someone attractive, he naturally leaps to the assumption that that must be what that is. That he must want to boom like it's never been done. What he offers in If You're Into It has nothing to do with sexual attraction on his end. In fact, it aligns perfectly with how he feels in other tangible situations like this. There's the way he breaks the actions down. One step not equaling interest in another step, just like in A Kiss Is Not a Contract. Then there's sort of his ambivalent reluctance towards the idea of sex, really preferring to just hang out, have a burrito with beans and rice maybe, which has not changed despite him being the one to offer it. Interestingly, before Jermaine got involved, the song didn't mention sex at all. It actually started out as a more family-friendly, metaphorical expression of how he'd be willing to do anything like climb the highest mountain or read the boringest book or eat the biggest meal just to be with her. This change started with Jermaine suggesting two things. One, that maybe the song should not be 2 hours long, and two, that he should make the song more realistic, more related to things he'd actually do for her. Because it's like, when are you going to climb a mountain or read a boring book? Now, what are realistic things that you'd have to do to be able to stay in a relationship with someone? Well, hang out is one of them, which he offers. That covers a lot of ground there. Pretty much most of the ground is just being present. And then there's sexual activity things. That part, as we've seen so far, is not something that Brett is really interested in. But remember, the original song is all about these big challenges that Brett would be willing to take on just to be with Coco. Brett really cared about her, and he knew what would likely be expected of him if he were to keep dating her. So, just like solving the hardest puzzle or racing the fastest animal, it might be a challenge, but if she's into it, it means getting to stay with her, he'll do it. You know, hell, he'll even have a threesome with her and her roommate Stuart, if her and Stuart are both into that. Then there's his relationship with Lisa, which we've touched on a little already. So, further context for the dating situation, Jermaine had asked Brett to be his wingman, and over the course of the episode, he unwittingly begins dating Lisa solely because he feels obliged to. Right from the start, she's constantly pressuring him into sex, and unfortunately, her manipulation wins out when she pulls the classic, "I'm shipping out to Iraq, and this might be our last chance" trick. Understandably, Brett does not feel good about this at all. Once again, he agreed to this because he thought it would make her happy, but unlike with Coco, he was not given the space to fully make this decision himself. And even after this upsetting experience, when he finds out that she is not, in fact, shipped out to war, but she's definitely shipping out tomorrow, trust her. She's just got the dates wrong. Oh, oops. He still offers to go on another date with her because he thinks that, it's going to make her happy. He's going through the motions of a relationship based on what he thinks will make the other person happy. Then there's the time he was offered a three-way in the episode New Fans. Now, if you remember earlier when talking about Ladies of the World, I mentioned two women who are interested in Jermaine and Brett. Those women are Rain and Summer, the new fans of the band. So, Jermaine, Brett, Summer, and Rain are all hanging out, and when Summer and Rain offer acid. Now, Jermaine had told them they do drugs earlier, so they both feel too awkward to say no, so they take it, and I don't know how that would affect things, because I don't know anything about drugs, but I felt like I should mention it, because, like I mentioned before, Brett is not interested in either of them, kind of just confused, but after they all take the drug, and Summer offers a threesome to the two of them individually, Brett and Jermaine both agree to it. So Brett agrees to that. They each believe that she was offering a threesome with her and Rain and, one of them, but just being indecisive on who. But it turns out she was offering a threesome with her, Jermaine, and Brett. Unsure of what to do, Brett and Jermaine go to discuss the matter privately.
No, can't do it. No.
I won't do it.
What, you're not doing it?
No way.
Well, if you're not doing it, I might do it.
You gonna do it?
Yeah, why not? I'm going to go for it.
Okay, let's do it.
No, don't do it. What? Don't do it. I'm going to do it.
Okay, well, do it. Let's do it.
I'm not going to do it if you do it. Are you doing it?
You're not doing it?
No.
Okay, I won't do it.
Well, if you're not doing it, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah, but if you do it and I'm not there, you're back to a two-way.
Yes, you're right.
Jermaine wanted to do the threesome because he was attracted to Rain and Summer. That's why when Brett says he's going to do it, someone he's not attracted to at all, ew, yucky, he doesn't have it going on it in the slightest bit, Jermaine no longer wants to do it. And when Brett says he's not going to do it, Jermaine's back on board because, hey, he's still attracted to Summer. His willingness to have sex is dependent on the people involved. Now, Brett isn't attracted to these ladies. Now, earlier, they were at a dinner hosted by other fan of the band, Mel, and Summer and Rain made out for the two. Jermaine was very into it. Brett just looked confused. He doesn't even realize that they're trying to imply that they're interested in them until Mel informs him of this. And then Jermaine's the one to be like, we gotta get out of here and go to their place. And even after they've gone to their apartment, Brett still looks freaked out when he thinks they're offering to whack them off.
What?
Then there's the whole taking acid thing, and only then is Brett on board, but for the sole reason that doing a threesome would be considered impressive. When Jermaine insists Brett can leave so he can be with Summer, Brett reminds him that it wouldn't be a threesome if he wasn't in there. Thus, what would be the point? Missing that, the point of wanting a threesome is supposed to be that it would be a pleasurable experience, not just that it would be cool. Although Brett may claim at times to be interested in sex, when it becomes real and tangible, his feelings consistently range around indifferent. It's not really something he, gets anything out of. The majority of instances we've seen he's done it have been because he's felt in some way obliged to. Finally, the cherry on top of the asexual experience Sunday was the lack of understanding from people in his life. It's the late 2000s. Brett's interests are constantly misunderstood and dismissed, no matter how many times he repeats himself, and he's sort of just, forced to play along. I mentioned this briefly at the start, but this is the case all throughout the episode Girlfriends. Jermaine tells her manager Murray that both he and Brett have girlfriends, and he's kind of imposed this girlfriend upon Brett because Brett really isn't into Lisa, but he's like, nope, we both have girlfriends. We've met them and everything. And Murray expects Brett to want to gossip about how far he got with his new girlfriend, even though Brett is like, I am not interested in that. I do not want to talk about this. When Brett tells Jermaine that he doesn't want to go out with the girls again, Jermaine is surprised, saying,
What? What are you talking about? It's girls and spaghetti. We love girls and spaghetti.
He's imposing this on this feeling that he has and assumes that everyone has onto Brett. When Brett asks his friend Dave for advice, explaining that he isn't ready to go to the next level, Dave just assumes he's being polite and wisely says,
Hot bod grows face. I get it. Just hit that shit from behind.
It doesn't even occur to him as a possibility that Brett could not genuinely be not interested in her. And then, Brett tries to explain further that it's not that. He just wants to, when he makes the move, he wants it to be special. Perfect. But Dave tells him that won't cut it. In a later episode, Wingmen, Dave insists that Brett should tell a girl that he has a crush on that he's freaky so that she'll want to have sex with him, and Brett never said that that's what he wanted. And finally, like I mentioned earlier, in the episode Yoko, his song for Coco didn't even mention anything about sex before Jermaine got involved in the writing. This kind of stuff is a constant for asexual people. Most of us, when we've expressed these kind of feelings, or rather, lack thereof, it's always met with are you sure? And an assumption that we'll get over it eventually. We're just frigid or afraid of intimacy, or in Brett's case, too polite to say she's got a gross face. It's just not an option to not be interested in that, and it won't cut it to not live up to that standard. You won't be able to date people without that, and that idea is something that Brett is just constantly in friction with. I don't know if I used that word right. In the song Boom, Brett says he wants to boom like it's never been done. Bust a move like it's the click boom of a gun. In the marquee and the bass is booming. Someone smoking boom at the back of the room, and it's the first day of boom and the flowers are blooming. Drum boom bass and the party is booming. Boom ba boom like a rocket taking off to the moon. Boom boom like a bride and boom. And I believe he believes that. I believe that he believes that he is the boom king, that he's capable of being the boom king. Because, what other option is there? He either loves the boom or he can't keep dating a girl. He loves the boom or he gets ostracized by his friends. He loves the boom or there's something wrong with him. And hey, if the boom is so great, then why wouldn't Brett shove down his own feelings so he can love the boom too? There once was a king, the people called him Boom, cause that was his thing. They looked on in envy as the ladies would sigh and say, darling husband, why can't you boom like that guy? The looks were not all that they seemed, a secret, Boom King did all. He didn't really love the boom like his name foretold. He never actually truly boomed or even boomed around. But maybe if he was given enough time to get to know a girl, he would maybe consider the possibility of taking it up to the next level. They can feel it out when they get to that point. Boom
Boom King, you're so alone. Up there on your throne, come down, come down. Boom King, you don't have to fake it or even get naked, just take off your crown. The Boom King did try to yield his name first to his friends, but they questioned his claims. They said, a man who doesn't boom is like a knight who doesn't joust. Pun intended.
You get it? Because, you know, I'll move on to the next part.
Tried and tried just to explain till he was tired and fraught. So very friends to girls to all around. His drift remained uncaught. If only asexuality was more known of in 2009. There was some community on the net. Oh, Boom King, look online.
Go down to the internet cafe, Boom King.
Boom King, you're so alone. Up there on your throne, come down, come down. Boom King, you don't have to fake it or even get naked, just take off your crown. The girl's sexual need, that's a tragedy of the Boom King. I'm aware it's not canon, just let me overanalyze and